When I was 16, I thought the worst thing that could happen in high school was failing math or forgetting my locker combination, but it turned out I was wrong. Because nothing prepared me for the day I found out someone had been writing about me on the new anonymous app everyone in school was obsessed with. It started like any other Monday morning at Jefferson High, where gossip traveled faster than the morning bell. My best friend, Marissa, slid into our homeroom seat next to me with her phone already open and her face twisted in the kind of look that always meant something messy was going down. She whispered, "Don't freak out, but have you seen the latest post on Chatterbox?" That was the app. It had popped up a few weeks earlier and immediately spread like wildfire. Every student had it on their phones. The whole point was that you could write anonymous posts about anyone, and people could like, comment, or spread it around. No names, no rules, except for the tiny disclaimer that said bullying wasn't allowed. But of course, everyone ignored that. Marissa handed me her phone, and my stomach dropped because there it was, a post about me, plain as day. Guess who thinks she's smarter than everyone, but actually just flirts her way into good grades? Hint. She sits in the front row of English and wears that ugly red jacket every day. My hands went cold because that was me. I was the only one who sat in the front row in English, and yeah, I wore my favorite red jacket all the time. Suddenly, I could feel everyone's eyes on me, even though nobody was looking. I shoved the phone back and said, "It's probably just a dumb joke," but inside, my chest was pounding and all I could think about was who would write that and why. I kept my head down all day, but it didn't help. Whispers floated behind me in the hallway. Someone fake coughed, "Teacher's pet," as I walked past, and I swear even Mr. Dawson, our English teacher, gave me a strange look, like maybe he had read it too and was wondering if it was true. At lunch, Marissa tried to distract me, but the noise around us was unbearable because Chatterbox had turned into the new social currency. Everyone was either laughing at posts, making bets about who wrote them, or pretending they didn't care while sneaking glances at their screens. I hated it because every beep from someone's phone made me think it was about me again. Over the next few days, more posts started appearing. At first, they were vague, like, "Some people need to stop acting like perfect angels when we all know what they're really like." But then they got more specific. "Someone should tell Rachel Sanders that being teacher's pet isn't a personality." That was my name, Rachel Sanders, and suddenly I wasn't imagining it anymore. People were snickering when I walked past, teachers looked at me with pity, and I had no idea who was behind it. Marissa swore she wasn't the one, and I believed her. She had been my friend since kindergarten. But the problem was Chatterbox made everyone suspicious because literally anyone could post, and it could be someone I barely talked to or someone I thought was close. One night, I scrolled through the app by myself, reading every word, and the more I read, the more it felt like whoever was posting knew me really well. They mentioned little details, like the fact that I always ordered strawberry milk at lunch or that I doodled stars in the margins of my notes. Things you wouldn't notice unless you were paying attention. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just random gossip. Someone was watching me, someone who sat close enough or knew enough to turn every tiny quirk into ammunition. My brain started running through possibilities: classmates, teammates, people from clubs, even neighbors who went to my school. And then came the post that made me freeze. It said, "Some people's dads shouldn't act so proud. Maybe if they knew the truth, they wouldn't brag so much." My dad had been bragging about me recently because I won the regional essay contest, and suddenly this felt personal, like the person wasn't just mocking me, but wanted to humiliate my family. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept refreshing the app, waiting for the next post to appear, and when it did, I realized this wasn't going to stop until I found out who was doing it and why. The following morning felt different. The hallways seemed louder, every laugh sharper, every look more deliberate. I tried to act normal, but I kept thinking, is it you? When I looked at each face in class, I started noticing things I hadn't before. People huddled over their phones and then glanced at me. People nudged each other when I answered a question too quickly in English. Even Marissa got a side-eye from a group of girls I barely knew, and that's when I realized the worst part wasn't just the posts. It was that Chatterbox had turned my entire school into suspects, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that the enemy wasn't a stranger, it was someone sitting right next to me, smiling. The morning after the post about my dad, I thought maybe things would calm down, maybe people would forget and move on, because high school attention spans are short, but I was wrong, because when I opened Chatterbox before first period, there were 3 new posts, and all of them were about me. One said, "Guess who stayed up all night practicing answers just to impress Mr. Dawson?" Another said, "Maybe if she spent less time sucking up and more time living, she'd actually have friends." And the third one cut so deep I had to reread it twice. "Rumor has it she's not as perfect at home as she pretends. Maybe her family should stop bragging until they find out what she really does." I felt my stomach twist like the floor had been ripped out from under me, because what did that even mean? What could they possibly be talking about? My parents were proud of me, sure, but I didn't have anything to hide, did I? My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone when Marissa leaned over. She tried to calm me down, but she looked worried too, not just for me, but like she was scared of something she wasn't saying. At lunch that day, the whispers were louder. People stared openly. I caught Katie from math pointing at me and laughing with her friends, and I wanted to sink into the floor, but I forced myself to act normal. The problem was it was becoming impossible, because Chatterbox was controlling the whole mood of the school. By third period, someone shouted across the hall, "Hey, teacher's pet, where's your red jacket?" and everyone laughed. I wanted to scream, but instead I pretended not to hear. I told myself it was just jealousy, but deep down I knew it was more than that. Someone was out to break me. That night, I sat in my room scrolling through the latest posts again, trying to piece together clues. The way they wrote felt deliberate, not random. They used phrases like "rumor has it," or "maybe if she," trying to sound casual, but every word had weight. I noticed they always posted late at night or early in the morning, like they wanted me to wake up to it. They also seemed to know about things that happened in real time, like the jacket comment, because that morning I hadn't worn it, and the post went up right after. How could they know unless they were watching me constantly? That thought made me shiver. The next day during English, I caught Ethan staring at me while pretending to write something in his notebook. He looked away quickly when I met his eyes, and my suspicion grew. Maybe he was jealous of my grades. Maybe he thought humiliating me would make him look better, but then again, he wasn't the type to put in that much effort. Later, in the cafeteria, I overheard Sarah whispering with 2 other girls, and they burst out laughing when I walked past. Sarah and I used to be close. She knew my secrets from middle school. She knew about the time I cried after my parents fought, how embarrassed I was when I failed a math quiz. Maybe she was using those old memories as material. My brain wouldn't stop spinning suspects around and around until it felt like everyone was guilty, but then something happened that changed everything. I was sitting on the bleachers after gym, scrolling through the latest posts, when I noticed a new one pop up. It said, "She thinks her best friend would never betray her, but maybe she should open her eyes." I felt my heart slam against my ribs, because there was only one person it could mean: Marissa. My best friend since kindergarten, the one who gave me her snack when I forgot mine, the one who cried with me when my cat died, the one who showed me the first post in the first place. Suddenly, my chest went cold. What if it had been her all along? She was close enough to know every detail, close enough to make it personal. Maybe she wanted to see me suffer. Maybe she was tired of always being the sidekick to Rachel, the so-called golden girl. I didn't want to believe it, but the thought dug into my brain and wouldn't leave. That night, I decided I needed proof. I texted Marissa, asking if she wanted to come over to study. She said sure, and when she came, I watched her carefully. Every time her phone buzzed, I tried to see if it was Chatterbox, but she never opened it. We sat on my bed surrounded by textbooks, and for a while it felt normal, but then I caught her looking at me strangely, almost like she was searching my face for something. She smiled quickly when I noticed, but my suspicion was already there. Later, after she left, I checked Chatterbox again, and a new post had gone up. It said, "Funny how some people think loyalty lasts forever, when in reality everyone has a breaking point." My hands shook as I stared at the screen, because Marissa had been at my house the whole time, and if she had posted it, she must have done it right after leaving. The timing was too perfect. I wanted to call her right then and scream, but something stopped me. What if it wasn't her? What if I accused her and ruined the only real friendship I had? I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, I kept replaying her strange smile over and over until I couldn't tell if it was real or just my imagination. Deep down, I knew the posts weren't stopping. They were escalating, and whoever was behind them wanted me isolated, scared, and broken. The next morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront the situation head-on. I couldn't go through another day not knowing who was behind the posts, because every second I spent guessing felt like it was eating away at me. I made a plan. I would watch everyone closely, try to catch a slip-up or clue that would point to the culprit. During homeroom, I pretended to doodle in my notebook, but my eyes scanned the room, every laugh, every whisper, every flick of a phone. I noticed Jason sitting across from me, tapping his pen nervously. I wondered if he was hiding something. I wanted to ask him, but the words wouldn't come. Then I caught sight of Sarah again. She was staring at me briefly and then looked down at her phone, but there was no way to know if she was posting or just scrolling for fun. It felt like walking through a minefield. I couldn't trust anyone. The tension was suffocating. During lunch, I isolated myself at the end of the cafeteria and opened Chatterbox. I tried to keep calm, but the latest post made my stomach drop. It said, "Careful who you trust, Rachel, because the ones closest to you might be the ones stabbing you in the back." I froze, my hands hovering over the screen. The timing of it was uncanny. It had gone up right as I sat down and looked at Marissa, who was at her usual table with her friends, laughing and acting completely normal. I couldn't tell if it was just coincidence or if she was hiding her guilt behind a perfect mask. The rest of the day was unbearable. Every glance in the hallway felt like a calculated threat. When I got home, I went straight to my room and started looking through social media, old texts, anything that could point me to the culprit. Hours passed. Nothing concrete. Then I remembered something, a small detail I'd overlooked. The timing of the posts. Every morning, every night, they appeared in bursts. Patterns. Someone had to be following my routine, noting when I was asleep, when I was awake, when I was alone. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just someone in my class. This was someone with access, someone close. Then a notification, a private message on Chatterbox. I hesitated before opening it. It read, "Stop looking or you'll regret it, Rachel. Some secrets are better left buried." My fingers shook. The phrasing, it was eerily familiar. My thoughts raced. Who could know my deepest fears? I thought about Marissa again. She had been there all along, attentive, supportive. Could she have done this? But the detail about my father, the personal knowledge, it didn't match her personality. Then I remembered the folded note from the locker room. The handwriting, the nervous style, it clicked. I had seen it before. Someone had been leaving me clues all along, teasing me, manipulating me. I realized the real puppet master wasn't the person I suspected most closely. It was someone who knew me from the edges of my life, someone who had been underestimated, invisible until now. The thought made my chest tighten. I wasn't prepared for the confrontation that was coming. Whoever this was had planned it meticulously, watched every move, and was counting on my paranoia to trap me in fear. And the worst part? I knew that when the truth came out, it would change everything, not just my reputation, but the people I thought I could trust, my family, even my own sense of safety. That night, I stayed up, mapping out timings, trying to predict the next post. My hands were clammy, my heart thumping in my chest. Every shadow in my room seemed alive, every creak in the house a signal that someone was watching. And then, around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A new post appeared. "You're closer than you think, Rachel. Maybe tomorrow you'll see who really pulls the strings." My breath caught. Tomorrow. I didn't sleep a wink. I stayed awake, every nerve on edge, trying to piece together the puzzle. Whoever this was, they were confident. They knew I would come closer, dig deeper. And I realized something terrifying. The person behind this didn't just want to hurt me, they wanted me to unravel, to break under the pressure. And somehow, somewhere, I had to turn the tables before it was too late, because the line between friend and foe had blurred so completely that I couldn't even trust my own instincts anymore. The post that appeared that evening made my blood run cold. It said, "Rachel thinks she can hide things forever, but everyone has skeletons in their closet, and some are closer than she thinks." I stared at it, heart hammering, mind racing. Because whoever wrote this didn't just know my school life, they knew about my family and my private moments, the little things I'd told no one else, things I'd assumed were safe in the quiet corners of my life. Panic started clawing at my chest. Was it really Marissa, or had I been chasing shadows while the real culprit watched from a distance? I couldn't trust anyone. My phone buzzed constantly, and every new notification was a dagger twisting in my stomach. I tried to block my friends from the app, but Chatterbox didn't care. It thrived on chaos and fear, and I was caught in the middle. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed up watching the ceiling, imagining everyone around me as a potential spy, plotting their next post. My parents knocked on my door, worried. I forced a smile, said I had a headache, but inside I felt completely alone. I realized the anonymous app had turned my life upside down, had made me question every friendship, every glance, every word spoken. The next morning, I walked into school feeling like a ghost. Everyone was whispering, snickering, staring. Some posts were now about how I'd reacted to the previous posts, turning me into the punchline of a cruel joke. I couldn't hide. Every time I turned a corner, I felt eyes on me. I avoided the cafeteria, avoided the hallways, clutched my books tightly like a shield. Then I noticed him, Ethan. He leaned against his locker, watching me with a smirk I couldn't read. Was he enjoying this? Was he posting now? My mind whirled. I tried to tell Marissa, but the words caught in my throat. How could I confront her when I wasn't even sure she was involved? Later that day, I saw Sarah slipping a note into someone's locker. I followed discreetly and saw it was Jason. They exchanged looks and whispers. Were they allies? Were they the ones behind the posts? It felt like the entire school had turned into actors in a play I hadn't auditioned for. I tried to stay in my own world, focused on classes, but even Mr. Dawson gave me a sideways glance, as if he suspected something was wrong but didn't know how to help. I felt trapped. By the end of the day, I couldn't take it anymore. I left school through the back gate, avoiding everyone, running straight home. I locked my room door, took my laptop, and started digging through social media, old texts, anything that could point me to the culprit. Hours passed. Nothing concrete. Then I remembered something, a small detail I'd overlooked. The timing of the posts. Every morning, every night, they appeared in bursts. Patterns. Someone had to be following my routine, noting when I was asleep, when I was awake, when I was alone. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just someone in my class. This was someone with access. Someone close. Then a notification, a private message on Chatterbox. I hesitated before opening it. It read, "Stop looking or you'll regret it, Rachel. Some secrets are better left buried." My fingers shook. The handwriting, the phrasing, it was eerily familiar. My thoughts raced. Who could know my deepest fears? I thought about Marissa again. She had been there all along, attentive, supportive. Could she have done this? But the detail about my father, the personal knowledge, it didn't match her personality. Then I remembered the folded note from the locker room. The handwriting, the nervous style, it clicked. I had seen it before. Someone had been leaving me clues all along, teasing me, manipulating me. I finally realized the real puppet master wasn't the person I suspected most closely. It was someone who knew me from the edges of my life, someone who had been underestimated, invisible until now. The realization hit me like a wave of icy water. I wasn't prepared for the confrontation that was coming. Whoever this was had planned it meticulously, watched every move, and was counting on my paranoia to trap me in fear. And the worst part? I knew that when the truth came out, it would change everything, not just my reputation, but the people I thought I could trust, my family, even my own sense of safety. I had a choice: stay trapped in the invisible chains of terror, or take a risky step forward and find out who had been hiding in the shadows. That night, I made a decision. I would confront the person behind Chatterbox posts, even if it destroyed everything around me. I set up a small recording device in my room, mapped out the timings, tried to predict the next post. My hands were clammy, my heart thumping in my chest. Every shadow in my room seemed alive, every creak in the house a signal that someone was watching. And then, around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A new post appeared. "You're closer than you think, Rachel. Maybe tomorrow you'll see who really pulls the strings." My breath caught. Tomorrow. I didn't sleep a wink. I stayed awake, every nerve on edge, trying to piece together the puzzle. Whoever this was, they were confident. They knew I would come closer, dig deeper. And I realized something terrifying. The person behind this didn't just want to hurt me, they wanted me to unravel, to break under the pressure. And somehow, somewhere, I had to turn the tables before it was too late. The moment the truth came out, it wasn't with some dramatic confrontation in the middle of the cafeteria. It wasn't with me catching someone red-handed typing on their phone. It was quieter, sharper, and infinitely more terrifying. It happened when I least expected it, during last period, when the teacher left the room for just a moment and the class dissolved into chatter. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and against my better judgment, I opened Chatterbox right there. The latest post wasn't like the others. It wasn't mocking or vague. It was direct. It said, "Rachel still hasn't figured it out. Poor thing. She never noticed the person in the shadows, the one who heard everything, the one she never paid attention to." My heart raced, my mind flipping through faces. I looked up, and that's when my eyes landed on Alex. Quiet, reserved Alex, who sat 3 rows behind me in nearly every class, who never raised his hand, who nobody noticed unless they needed an extra player for gym. And he was looking right at me. Not with anger, not with guilt, but with a small, twisted smile that sent chills up my spine. My breath caught. Could it really be him? That night, unable to ignore the gnawing certainty building inside me, I decided to test my theory. I created a fake account on Chatterbox and posted something baiting, something only Alex would understand. Some people are too quiet for their own good. Maybe they're hiding secrets. 10 minutes later, another post appeared. "Careful, Rachel. Quiet doesn't mean blind. You'll regret poking the wrong person." My blood ran cold. It was him. It had to be him. But why? Why me? The next day, I confronted him, though my voice shook with fear. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered as we walked out of class together. He tilted his head, eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. "Because you never saw me," he said simply. "You never saw how hard I worked, how invisible I was while you got everything. Perfect grades, teachers' attention, friends. You think you're untouchable, but I wanted to show you what it feels like to be small." My throat tightened. I wanted to argue, to tell him I never meant to ignore him, that his pain wasn't my fault, but the words caught in my chest. He leaned closer. "Besides," he murmured, "it's fun watching you squirm." That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept refreshing Chatterbox, waiting for the next strike, the next attack. But none came. Days passed. Silence. It should have been a relief, but instead it was worse, because I knew Alex was still out there, still watching, still capable of breaking me with a single post. And then, just as I started to believe maybe it was over, the final blow came. A post appeared late at night, one that made me drop my phone. It said, "Rachel thinks the game is done, but I'm not finished." This isn't about posts anymore. This is about control. My chest tightened, panic flooding me. It wasn't over. It would never be over. Because Alex wasn't just hiding behind an app anymore. He was out in the real world, and he had decided that I was his target, his project, his obsession. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Exposing him wouldn't save me. Deleting the app wouldn't save me. The only way to end it was to face him, not as Rachel the golden girl, not as Rachel the victim, but as Rachel who had finally decided to fight back. I closed the app, took a shaky breath, and whispered to myself in the dark, "This ends with me." But even as I said it, I knew the truth. This story wasn't finished. Not yet. Because monsters don't disappear just because you recognize them. Sometimes, the scariest ones live right beside you, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the next chance to remind you that your life is never really your own.